104 The X is Baton Rouge's new rock that is Filter with Hey Man, Nice Shot. I Am the Fish, and Richard Patrick of Filter is now in a band called Army of Anyone, and we got Richard Patrick on the phone right now. Richard Patrick, how you living today?
I'm living really, really well, man. I'm really, really happy, really kicking ass today.
Where you at right now?
I'm at my house in Southern California.
Well, it's a couple of weeks before you guys take to the road for the Snowcore Tour, the 2007 Snowcore Tour, and you will be making a stop right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 2 weeks from tomorrow night. So is it kind of like the calm before the storm before you head out on tour over there?
We have rehearsals all next week, actually all this week, and you know, it's always amazingly fun to just get together with the guys and play, and you know, we're crank up the amplifiers and go for it, and it's a lot of fun, actually.
Do you have any special preparations that you make before you go on a long tour?
The only thing I do is I make sure my voice is checked out by a doctor, and I do a lot of warm-ups and stuff. Like, I start rehearsing 4 or 5 days before without the band, just so I can keep my voice in check.
Well, we're very excited about you guys stopping by in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in support of your brand new CD, Army of Anyone, your brand new band, Army of Anyone. Let's talk about how Army of Anyone got together. How did you meet up with the DeLeo brothers?
I met up with the DeLeo brothers on the road out there in the 90s, and you know, they were big Filter fans, and of course I was a huge STP fan. And you know, it's the kind of thing where you just, you know, you're always like, hey, I wonder what it would be like, you know? I wonder what it would be like, you know, getting together with those guys. And of course, Scott went and did Velvet Revolver, and then I was managed by the same guys. And you know, it was like, hey, you know, the DeLeo brothers are hanging out. They're kind of interested in, you know, maybe getting together with you. So we had a little impromptu kind of jam session with my computer, and we wrote this song called A Better Place, and it was so compelling as a piece of music that we were like, wow, I wonder what it would be like if we did an entire record. And if you're like, well, what a record would be like, I wonder what a tour would be like, and I wonder what, you know, so our imaginations just ran wild, and we decided to be in a band together called Army of Anyone.
Now, was it always the intention, whenever you guys got together and started writing, that it would be Army of Anyone, or were they originally coming on board to do some Filter stuff for you? Or
I mean, I was working on a Filter record, which I still have. I have 30 songs recorded for the fourth Filter record, but in all honesty, I was just at a crossroads in my life, and they came and kind of were like, I was just like, you know, let's kind of write for that, and it was different sounding. You know, Filter's it's got its own unique quality about it, and this was so different. It was like, well, this kind of is its own thing, and that's what led us into being like, well, why don't we just be in a band together?
Well, was it difficult for you? Because, I mean, Filter's kind of your thing, and you've been working on that for many, many years. Is it difficult for you, or was it refreshing for you to be working and collaborating with other guys, strong writers like the DeLeo brothers?
Well, the amazing thing is I always kind of wanted to be in a band. I always wanted a four-legged table where each guy was a genius at what he does. Filter was kind of like that, but kind of not like that. I mean, I wrote all the music. I was the only guy who was signed to the record company. You know, and it kind of had a little bit of a revolving door to it. You know, I mean, Lee Skang was in it on Short Bus, and then he left, and then Gino kind of came on board as a writer, and you know, and I wanted it to be kind of like what this band is. This band, Robert DeLeo is a bass hero, and he's also a songwriting genius. I mean, he wrote all those. He wrote many of the hits for Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
Dean DeLeo is considered a guitar hero. He hates it when I say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
And then Ray Luzier is a phenomenal drummer who has, again, who's been kind of critically acclaimed and kind of noticed by many, you know, for a long time. So this is kind of one of those bands where it's like each guy is supposed to be really great at what he does. And Filter was definitely like that. But I think, like, Frank, it's kind of hard to get Frank to come to the studio sometimes, and I think he was always kind of aware that, like, you know, no matter what, I'm going to write the bass line probably, and you know, it's just,
yeah.
I always wanted Filter to be kind of like the band, but in reality, Filter was pretty much it was my thing. It was my kind of like solo thing. So, you know, with that being said, if Filter's kind of like my solo thing, and this is kind of my new band, you know, I can't necessarily count Filter out. You know what I mean? But it certainly isn't my priority now. My priority now is Army of Anyone. I want to make 10 records with these guys. I believe that this is just the beginning of a lot of great music, and you know, I'm just excited to be working with such great, talented guys and different guys.
Now, everybody knows you. Everybody knows the DeLeo brothers. Let's talk about Ray Luzier. This guy, when you listen to the Army of Anyone CD, this guy is all over the place, man. He is rocking out on those drums.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get him from, or where did you meet him at?
Well, Ray Luzier is actually one of these studio guys and he toured with David Lee Roth for about 8 years. He's just one of these muso guys that he lives, eats, breathes drum. It's really refreshing to have someone so dedicated to his instrument. And to be honest with you, you kind of have to. I mean, guitar players and singers can kind of float around. We don't have to be so technically perfect. Drummers cannot. Drummers have to be absolutely spot on.
And you yourself, Richard Patrick, you've been through a lot of changes in your life over the past 5 years or so. You've gotten clean. I believe that was in September of 2002.
My body has been experiencing some changes, yes.
And whenever you went on tour with Army of Anyone, that would be your first tour, I believe, since you got clean. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, I was just making a joke, like I went through some kind of puberty or something. Yeah, no, I was a total raving alcoholic for a long time. And in 2002, September 28th to be exact, I decided to go ahead and change my life. And it was a lot of drugs and alcohol and carrying on and not really caring about anything and being really, really selfish to, like, realizing that there was a lot more to my life than copping a buzz and going to nightclubs and doing that kind of a thing and hurting all my friends and family. So yeah, I got sober, and along with that, you know, there's this incredible amount of change that goes on in your life, and it's just made me more focused. You know, there's more to my life than just, you know, recovering from a hangover. It's a beautiful place to be. I recommend it for people that are, you know, listening to this interview. I mean, if you think you've got a drinking problem, believe in yourself, and you can stop it. And
we're talking to Richard Patrick, the lead singer of Army of Anyone, former lead singer of Filter. And speaking of your old band, Filter, whenever we see you guys, Army of Anyone, right here in Baton Rouge at the Varsity Theater 2 weeks from tomorrow night, not only will you be playing Army of Anyone songs, but you'll also be dusting off some of the STP and Filter songs, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the funny thing is I'm talking about health and, like, happiness and everything else, but, like, I pour everything out on stage, and it can get pretty tough up there. I love, like, a lot of the Filter stuff. We do it with so much more conviction. Hey Man, Nice Shot, you know, and some other great songs that we do. It's about, you know, it's about releasing those inner demons, you know, and kind of reliving it for me on stage. And, you know, and these guys, my new bandmates, play the living hell out of those songs. And, you know, as far as Stone Temple Pilots, you know, I've always been a fan of Scott Weiland. I love his lyrics, and for me to have the opportunity to actually sing a couple songs, that Scott wrote is for me it's a great honor, and we have a lot of fun. We play a lot of Army of Anyone, and it's just a big old rock show, you know. It's just a big ass whooping. So.
I saw you on YouTube. You were singing a U2 song with the lead singer of Flyleaf from the Family Values tour.
Yeah, you know, I've been making the rounds. I love Flyleaf. I met those guys about a year ago and about a year and a half ago, and they were, you know, it's so compelling to see them live. And we were talking backstage at the Anaheim Family Values, and they were like, "Well, maybe you should come up on stage and sing one of these times." And they were like, "What about a U2 song?" And I said, "Well, if we're going to do U2, then we got to hit it out of the park." And Lacey was like, "I agree." So we went for the biggest, probably one of the hardest songs he sings, "Pride in the Name of Love," and you know, we did a great job of it. If I don't mind saying so myself.
And people can find that version on the Family Values Tour CD, which was also just released, I believe. I don't know what record label that's on. That's on your label, Firm Music.
Yeah, that's on Firm Music.
That's on the Firm. Now let's talk about this contract you have with the Firm Music, because the Firm is usually a management company, but I understand they have these revolutionary contracts with artists now. A lot of musicians are looking at these new deals that that record labels like the Firm are offering.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know, I could make, 60 cents a record, and they could sell the record, $14 per CD.
Yeah.
You know, we could sell the record for like $8, and I could make half the money. So you see what's going on? The record industry, the CD industry, due in part mainly from file sharing and ripping, is in total chaos. And it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but it's kind of their fault. They didn't see it coming. we were all fat during the 90s. We all just sat around and just collected our money, and everybody bought CDs. And the reality is kids are like, you know what? I don't want to buy a CD with every song on it. I want to buy one song, you know. And they're definitely, you know, their voices are being heard. So for us to adjust to that, the firm being one of the smartest, you know, organizations in the music industry, those guys reworked the entire model of how bands do business. And you know, we are partnered with the firm and with EMI, and we own and are directly responsible for the money that we put into this whole thing, and we make more back. And you know, it's an experiment, and it's working, and it's probably the way most records are going to be done in the future. And you know, the amazing thing is that, you know, most people, music is everywhere now. You know, ever since I got an iPod, I've actually listened to more music than I've ever have, really, because it's on shuffle in my house all the time, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't heard that record in like 10 years, you know what I mean? And so music's everywhere, but the reality is that, you know, it needs a change, and we're the band to do it.
Army of Anyone, an Army of Anyone going to be here in Baton Rouge, as I said, 2 weeks from tomorrow night. Richard, we look very much forward to seeing you guys right here in Baton Rouge for the 2007 Snowcore Tour.
Absolutely, and we look forward to being there, too, and we're going to have a killer time. We're going to rip it up.
Awesome, Richard. Thank you for talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.